All right, here we go. Today we have one of the greatest baseball players of all time, Pete Rose, a.k.a. Charlie Hustle, a.k.a. the Hit King, the all-time MLB leader in hits, three-time World Series champion, MVP winner, Rookie of the Year, and countless other accolades. Pete Rose, it's truly an honor to sit down with you today.
Well, thank you very much, and go ahead. Mention the other accolades. We got all day. Just kidding.
We'll get to
kidding.
It.
Just kidding.
We'll get. There's a lot of other accolades that I'm going to get to, but it's our first time sitting down together. So I want to start in the very beginning. So born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I was born actually about 3 miles from Crosley Field, where I broke in with the Reds in 1963. So, needless to say, I'm a hometown boy.
That's right. Now, your dad actually played semi-pro football until he was like almost 50 years old.
Actually, he's 44, and I got to see him play because, back in the 50s, I was the water boy for the football team. I was the ball boy for his basketball team, and I was the bat boy for his baseball team. So I was always going to some kind of sporting event to watch my father participate. It was fun. It was all part of growing up.
Okay, so clearly you grew up in a very sports-oriented family. And you yourself, you started playing baseball at age 8?
Little League Baseball, probably I started switch batting when I was 9. So probably 8 is correct. 8 or 9, something like that.
Okay, now you were a switch batter from the very beginning. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Naturally right-handed, but I became a switch batter when I was 9 years old. Not a switch hitter.
That's relatively rare.
I was a switch batter. Let's clarify that right now, okay?
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's not very common. Why was it that at such a young age you started being able to, to bat from both directions like that?
Well, I think what happened to me is I had an uncle who was a scout for the Reds and was a great ball player. And he didn't become the ball player that he became until he became a switch batter. So my dad and him got their heads together, and I showed some potential to be a switch batter. And I remember my dad telling the coach, I don't care what the situation is, if there's a right-hander pitching, I want him to bat left-handed and vice versa. And that was at the age 9. So that's when I started hitting from both sides of the plate. Big advantage. Okay. It was a big advantage when I played, being a switch batter, because you always got that breaking ball, curveball, and slider, and those type of pitches coming into you, as opposed to going away from you.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so you started playing baseball at it.
I used to bet too. You just said you bet?
No.
You just said that. I bet.
Okay. Oh, no, I know. Yeah, I said I bet. Right.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I bet. Right. Okay, so you started playing baseball at age 8, but wasn't football like your real first love?
Yeah, it's because my dad was a great football player, and I don't think the game of football was my first love at 8 or 9 years old. That didn't happen until 14 or 15 when I got to high school. But I really liked football, and I was a real good football player. My mistake, I didn't like school. I almost went to the University of Tennessee to play football, but hey, when I graduated from high school, I weighed 158, and 2 years later playing baseball, I weighed 202. So I matured physically late as an athlete.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. So you're playing football at Western Hills High School.
Yes.
And you were kind of small back then, right?
Yes.
Now,
I grew.
Your freshman
I started
year,
growing my sophomore year. That's when I started filling out because no one in my family was ever real small. All the males in my family were 190, 195, 200, something like that. So everybody knew, I guess they didn't know when, but they knew I was going to grow eventually because they used to call me Little Pete all the time because my dad's name was Pete. Yeah, I was a Little Pete.
You were Little Pete, Big Pete. Okay, so you start out your freshman year as a running back, but you weren't promoted to varsity your sophomore year.
Right.
And that became a problem for you?
No. School became a problem for me. And I flunked my first sophomore year. So then I played football my second sophomore year and my junior year. And by the time I was a senior, I already had the 6 semesters of eligibility. So I didn't play any sports when I was a senior in high school.
Right. Okay. So from what I understand is because, you weren't really focused on school.
Right.
You actually had to attend summer school or be held back a year. And if you attend a summer school, you wouldn't get to play, sports over the summer. So your dad decided to actually hold you back so you could play in the summer?
No, I never went to summer school in my life. I screwed around my first sophomore year and I flunked. So now I woke up from my second sophomore year and in my junior year, then the senior year, I was ineligible because I already had the 6 semesters of eligibility under my belt.
Exactly. Okay. So you were what, like 19 by the time you were a senior?
I was 19 when I graduated.
Got it. Okay. So,
but don't forget, I didn't play as a senior. I never played any sports as a senior. Matter of fact, when I was a senior, I played in the Dayton AA Amateur League, Dayton, Ohio, which was a real good league, twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. And I'll never forget, I was 25 for 50 in that league. And that's when I signed with the Reds out of that Dayton AA Amateur League.
Okay, because you had an uncle named Buddy.
Who was a scout for the Reds.
He was a bird dog scout for the Reds. And from what I understand, I mean, the Reds weren't trying to get you at the time. No. He convinced them to bring you on?
My uncle did.
Exactly.
I think what my uncle did, he convinced them that everybody in my family matured physically late. He convinced them I was going to weigh more than 155 pounds. Because back in the 60s, they weren't knocking the doors down to sign a 150-pound second baseman that just started switch hitting 5 or 6 years before. So it worked. He got me an opportunity to play professional baseball. I signed on Friday, left on a Saturday to go to Geneva, New York, to play in the New York Penn League. And I'll never forget when I got there. I'm 2 days out of high school. And the second baseman, the season already had started because this is June. And when I got to the ballpark the next day, the second baseman on that team was a guy named Antonio Perez, Tony Perez. He was 2 months out of Cuba. So I've been friends with Tony Perez since June of 1960. Think about that.
Yeah. Okay, so if we're talking about 1963, how rare was it for a kid coming straight out of high school to join the MLB? Because you didn't do any college at all.
No, we didn't have. Back in them days, we didn't have time to go to college. You had to put your apprenticeship in the minor leagues. And I was relatively fast. I only spent 2 years and 2 months in the minor leagues. But don't forget, after my first 2 months with Geneva, then I went to Tampa the next year to play in the Florida State League, and I hit .330 and was Player of the Year. Then the next year, I went to Macon, Georgia, which was in the Sally League, and I hit .330 again, and kind of paved the way for me to go to spring training as a non-roster player for the '63 season. Hey, and I ended up impressing the manager, who was Fred Hutchison, and he added me to the team.
Well, right. I guess during that game against the Chicago White Sox in '63, the regular second baseman, Don Blasingame?
Yeah.
Blasingame. He pulled a groin muscle.
Hey, so he missed a couple of days, and I played the next 24 years.
Right. You took full advantage of that, and you kind of just went into that position.
Sounds like Wally Pipp, doesn't it?
Yep.
If you got a job, man, if you got a job at the big league level, don't ever give it up, especially for an injury. Yep. And
right.
I missed 10 games in the 1970s, which is 11 years in the big leagues. I missed 10 games, and 3 of them was because I got hurt running into Ray Fosse in the 1970 All-Star game. That was 3 of the 10 that I missed in the 70s. That's pretty consistent.
Oh, no, you have an incredible track record of making it to almost every game. I mean, yeah, it's insane. Now, there's a couple different versions of this. So the name Charlie Hustle, how did you get that nickname?
Okay, here's my take on it. In spring training, 1963, we're playing in Fort Lauderdale. We're training in Tampa. The Yankees train in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm a non-rostered player, just sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden they needed a pinch runner in the 8th inning. Okay, because I haven't went out to do my running yet and call it a day, I had to wait for the bus to go all the way back to the area coast to Tampa. And the manager said, Pete, go in and pinch run for so-and-so. And I did. And I tagged up on a short fly ball down the left field line and went to second, safe. Now I'm on second, and the guy got a base hit and a short pop-up to the shortstop, Tony Kubek, who was backpedaling. And when I played, no one's going to be backpedaling to throw me out. Okay, so he caught it, and I tagged up from third and went into home head first, and we won the game 3-2, and I was on the Star of the Game show. And after the game, as happened in those days, the reporters all went in the clubhouse to interview the players. And this one particular group of writers was talking to Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford. And one of them, I don't know which one said it, but one of them said, did you see that Charlie Hustle beat you tonight by tagging up from third? And I don't know if Mickey said that to Whitey or Whitey said that to Mickey. But then the next day in the paper, the headline, Charlie Hustle beats Yanks. That's how I got that name.
And it's stuck ever since.
Stuck ever since. I don't know what would happen if they'd have called me Charlie Two Shoes or something, but Charlie Hustle was the name that they gave me. And I was happy because in those days, I'm a young kid, 20 years old or so, and I get to go to Fort Lauderdale to play the Yankees. I get to play against Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford, people like that. So that was like a dream come true to me.
Okay, so then April 8th, 1963, you guys had a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Bob Friend was.
That's when you made your major league debut.
Yeah.
How did it feel to walk on that field
well,
for the first time?
Well, it was goosebumpy, and I wasn't really nervous until right before. Don't forget, we were from Cincinnati. Right before the game, the press got my mom and dad from behind the dugout to come down on the field to get pictures of me because I was leading off for the Reds that day. And that kind of woke me up that I'm playing for the Cincinnati Reds on opening day, something I wanted to do my whole life. And my mom and dad were part of it because they were right there on the field with me. Bob Friend was pitching. First time up, I walked on 4 pitches. I don't know if I could have swung. I was so nervous. But then the next guy up was Frank Robinson, who hit a home run. So I scored the first run of the year that year because in those days, the Reds were the only team to play on that Monday before opening day. Everyone else played on Tuesday, but the Reds got the opening day on Monday because that was the first professional team in the history of baseball, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, 1869.
Mm. Well, originally, when you first started playing, you went 0 for 11.
Yeah. But I hit the ball hard, though. I was hitting the ball hard. I don't remember why I went 0 for 11 because if you're a rookie and you're playing in the big leagues and you play 3 or 4 games and you don't get a hit, they usually send your ass back to the minors. But then I got a couple hits and ended up, the manager liked me. Freddie Hutchinson liked me. And it was a real cliquish team in those days. I didn't fit in because they had guys who 61 went to the World Series. 62 had kind of an off year. Now 63, they think they're going to come back and get to the World Series, and they stick this young brash rookie from Cincinnati at second base and hitting him first in the lineup. So I had a tough battle, but I didn't realize it. I didn't give a damn. I was happy to be in the big leagues. I didn't care what other people thought, the way I played, the way I hustled, the way I slid, the way I run the first on a base on balls, the way I was always early and left late. That's just the way I was.
Well, you got your first major league hit on April 13th.
Yeah.
And then you finished off the year with a 273.
Right.
And you won Rookie of the Year that year.
Yes. I beat out Ron Hunt from the Mets. I scored over 100 runs, which was a good stat for hitting 273. But in those days, 273 was respectable, especially if you're a young kid with only 2 years of minor league experience facing those big league pitchers every day. But I did get some doubles and walks and stuff like that. And when you score 100 runs as a rookie, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good stat. 101, I think, actually. But I had Frank Robinson coming up after me. Frank Robinson and Vada Pinson and Darren Johnson. That was our 3, 4, and 5 hitters.
I mean, how did it feel your first year in the major leagues to get Rookie of the Year?
I remember that too. Matter of fact, I remember everything. I was waxing a floor when I got a call from Jack Lang from Sports Writers of America because I was in the Army. I was waxing the mess hall floor at Fort Knox, Kentucky, when I got the call that I was named Rookie of the Year. That was pretty interesting too. See, because after the season, instead of having to join for a couple years, I went to active duty for 6 months. Then I was in the reserves for 6 years. But I was waxing the mess hall floor at Fort Knox when Jack Lang called the office there at the military base and told me I was Rookie of the Year.
Wow. So you were the most famous soldier on that whole...
At that time, I was.
At that time, exactly. Okay.
I was still a PFC, though.
Yeah. Okay, so that next year, 1964.
Yeah.
You play again, but this time you didn't have such a great year. You finished with a 269 average, but you got benched during the course of the year.
Yeah.
And that's when you decided to go to Venezuela.
You're absolutely right. For 2 reasons. One, because you made money. Okay. Don't forget, when I was in the big leagues the year before, my salary was $7,000 a year. $7,000. I got more than that in my pocket today. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I had to go to Venezuela. It was a good league because there was good pitching, a lot of major leaguers playing in the Venezuelan Winter League, and I caught fire. And what I hit, 350, something like that, in Venezuela, and I become a crowd favorite. Because I went down there, to be honest with you, a lot of players go down there and just make the money. I went down there and bust my ass. I played as hard as I could play for the Venezuelan people, and they loved me. They got in my camp, and that kind of made me take off as a big league hitter, because in '65 is the first year I hit 300. That was coming back from Venezuela, and I hit 300 like 9, 10, 11 years in a row after I come back from Venezuela. So I guess what I'm saying in a roundabout way is I really learned how to hit in Venezuela. I owe a lot to Venezuela.
Right, because like you said, when you came back in '65, you actually led the league in hits with 209 hits.
And hit 312 or 313, something like that.
It was 312, which was the first of 9 consecutive seasons where you were over 300.
Yeah, and 3 of them seasons were batting championships. 68, 69, and 73.
Yep. Okay, and you're also first at bats with 670 that year.
Yeah. Well, I didn't walk I did. I don't remember. Did I walk 100 times my first year? I had to do
I'm not
something,
sure.
hit 273 because I scored 101 runs. And you got to get on base to score runs. But there again, I was in a good streak in the 60s as far as hitting the baseball and getting a lot of hits. And like I told you a minute ago, I was always healthy. You know, I only had 2 major injuries in my life. 67, I separated my shoulder in Dodger Stadium. In 68, I broke my thumb diving for a ball in Dodger Stadium. Those are really the only 2 injuries I ever had in my life. Unless you want to call a divorce an injury.
well, right, because in 64 you got married,
Right.
and you had 2 kids. You ended up getting divorced later on in 1980, and was it over a baby that you had outside the marriage?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't think it was, but it may have been.
Okay. All right. So you come back strong.
Yeah.
And then in 66, you hit 16 home runs, which is a career high for you.
Yeah.
How did it feel to hit that many home runs that year?
Well, it didn't mean anything to me because I was never believed I was a home run hitter or was going to hit a lot of home runs. Just the way I swang. I didn't swing up. I swang down, hit the ball on the line. But that's about the period of time when I used to set goals every year, hit 300, get 200 hits, and score 100 runs. That's the way I was going to make a living. That's the way I was going to be able to negotiate the next year's contract. Because don't forget, I know you know this because you know everything. My first 16 years with Cincinnati, I signed 1-year contracts. I didn't get a multi-year contract until I went to Philadelphia for the 1979 season. So when you're playing on 1-year contracts, you got to bust your ass to get statistics, because that's what negotiating a contract is all about. Stats. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even about where we finished in the standings. It was about stats individually. Everyone was on their own in the off season to negotiate a new contract.
I mean, was that like that for everybody? Were any of your...
I didn't know anybody had a multi-year contract. Frank Robinson, Vada Pinson, Darren Johnson, Gordy Coleman. I didn't know anybody had multi-year. They just didn't have multi-year contracts in those days because free agency wasn't a big deal like it is today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that same year, you actually switched from second base to right field.
Yeah. Well, you sure about that? You sure I didn't go from second base to left field, then to right field, then periodically in center field, then back to left field, then to third base, then to first base. So I could play all the positions, and I made room for Tommy Helms, who was Rookie of the Year in '66. And he was a shortstop, played with me in the minors, but because I moved to third, gave him a chance to play second for the Reds when he won Rookie of the Year in '66. I gave Tommy Harper a chance to play in the outfield, and I went to third base because they knew I could play all over the field, and they knew whatever position I played, I would work my ass off to be a decent defensive player. If you want to be honest, if I want to be honest with you, I think when I was in Philadelphia, I never got the credit, but I think I was a hell of a first baseman. I played my ass off at first base in Philadelphia. But I had Schmidt and Boa and those guys throwing to me in trio, so I had really good infielders. Because I used to think that if you got a good player, you got a bad defensive player, the last place you want to put him is first base, because that's where all your outs are. You understand what I'm saying? And I just worked really hard, and I really enjoyed first base. I enjoyed them all, but first base was so much more fun than the other positions because every time the ball was hit, you got a chance to touch the ball. And there was no difference with me. And I got Schmidt throwing it right there, and Boa throwing it right there, and Trio throwing it right there. And it was a lot of fun for me. And we went to the World Series in '80. We went to the World Series in '83. We went to the playoffs in '82. So I was helping the team. That's all you play defense for, is to help the team.
Mm-hmm.
If they asked me to catch, I'd have caught, because all through Little League, I was a catcher. I was a catcher
okay.
all through
Didn't
Little
know that.
Leagues.
Okay.
That's why I wasn't the fielder in the minor leagues that I ended up being at first base, because I was always a catcher until my sophomore year of high school. And they put me at second base because I was too small.
Okay, so 68 rolls around, and you
68?
start out with a 68.
Okay.
Yep. You start out with a 22-game hitting streak.
I had 7 of those. I had 7 20-game or more hitting streaks.
Right. But that was your first
I
one.
bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
You know it now.
I know it now. But this was your very first one. So how did it feel to go on a streak like that?
Well, to be honest with you, I try to get a hit every freaking time up, every game I played. And, you know, I'm one of these guys that I believe someday someone will break 56 in a row. You know, I did 44 one time in 78 and went over, and then I went 5 or 6 more. And I couldn't run like some of these guys. I could hit. So I could foresee someone getting on a streak today and maybe hitting 57 in a row. You have to be a pretty good hitter, and you have to have a lot of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Even the day that my 44-game hitting streak ended, I hit 2 ropes in that game. One right here that Horner caught for an out, and McWilliams was a left-hander, threw a pitch like that, and I hit a one-hopper in his glove, which definitely would have been up the middle to extend the streak. And I was 0 for 4. And I'll tell you one guy who was rooting for me in that hitting streak, and his name is Ted Turner. Why? He owned the Atlanta Braves, and the night my streak was broke, they had 40,000 walk-up ticket sales. And if I'd have got to hit that game, they'd have had 40,000 more the next night. Because in those days, the Braves were drawing 12, 14,000 a game. Now, all of a sudden, Mr. Turner's got 40-some thousand at the ballpark. I'm surprised he didn't send me a bonus. He was a great guy. Ted Turner was a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so then 69 rolls around, and you bat 348, which is a career high for you. So you were absolutely on fire that year.
Well, I just, you know, like I said, when I got back from Venezuela, my confidence level changed. You know, I felt like I belonged as a big league hitter. And I knew I was on a good offensive team. And I knew I had good offensive players behind me. You know, in those days, with Frank Robinson, Veda Pinson, Darren Johnson, people like that, we scored a lot of runs. And I'm the leadoff hitter, so I'm going to score a lot of runs. And my job was just to get base hits. See how many hits I could get every night, every year, every month. And that become kind of my calling card, getting 200 hits, scoring 100 runs, getting 40 or more doubles. Those are all things that I try to do every year I played as a player. It's okay to set, I could have set 175 in hits and 85 runs to score, but I set high goals. The only reason you reach your goals is if you set high goals. That's the only reason you reach goals. You got to set them a lot of people think are too high. I don't know if anybody else ever set goals of 200 hits. I don't know if anybody else ever set goals of 100 runs scored or more. They had 121 year, 131 year. But when you're on an offensive team, you can set high goals. And I wasn't the type of guy who was going to miss any games because of injuries. I'd get 200 hits if I was playing today. I'd score 100 runs if I was playing today. I'd hit 300 if I was playing today. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hell, I played I played against, let me give you a list of guys I faced in my career. Warren Spahn, okay? Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Don Sutton, Juan Marichal, Bob Gibson. I mean, those are all really good pitchers that I faced over my career. And I didn't take off every time. Hell, we used to have a 9-game road trip. Listen to this. We play a Sunday game in Cincinnati, get on a plane and go to L.A. The next 3 games, we face Colfax, Drysdale, and Sutton. Then we go to San Francisco and face Marichal and Gaylord Perry and someone else. Then we stop in St. Louis on the way home and face Gibson, Carlton, and someone else. So there's 9 games during the schedule. I'm facing 7 Hall of Fame pitchers. So needless to say, that was a tough-ass road trip.
Right.
But you had to face who's on the schedule. You can't pick the easy ones because I couldn't hit Randy Jones with a boat oar. And you could hit him. He won a Cy Young, by the way, but I just couldn't hit Randy Jones. And he was the type of guy, I love Randy. He's the type of guy, he's one of those guys that he gets you out. Then when you run by the mound, he'd laugh at you. You hate those type of guys. I'll get you, you son of a bitch. But he's laughing at me now because he just got me out.
Well, yeah. I mean, that same year, you also slugged .512, which is the highest by far in your whole career. You also had a .432 OBP, which is a career best. So that was a shotgun year for you.
Well, we didn't worry about that kind of stuff back in them days. All we worried about was runs. Knock in runs or score runs. You got to do one or the other if you're a baseball player. What I mean by that, if you're a successful baseball player, you either got to knock in 100 or score 100. If you can do both, God bless you. But I never knocked in 100. I had 81 or 82 a couple years, which is a lot of RBIs for a leadoff hitter, to say the least. But I always scored 100. I scored 2,165 runs, which is second all-time to Ricky Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you play the game, right? To score more runs than the opposition. That's the way I played the game. I never get tired of shaking hands at home plate with teammates. That's something you never wanted to get old. That means you scored a run.
There you go. Okay, so then 1970. The All-Star game.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened there.
Well, we won the game. Let me tell you what happened before the game, which is more interesting than talking about me knocking Fosse on his butt, okay? The night, I had a friend of mine named Sam McDowell. Remember that name? Pitched for Cleveland Indians. Big left-hander, threw hard. He made the All-Star team, and I was his friend. And the game was in Cincinnati. He called me the day before the game and said, we got this rookie player named Ray Fosse who was added to the All-Star game. Can he go out to eat with us? Because I already made dinner reservations for Sam and me. And he brought Ray along with him. So I took Fosse out the night before that game. And I picked up the check and I knocked him on his ass and we won the game. That's the only thing that's important. Now listen, if we were playing today, I know you probably got clips of that. If we were playing today, I'd have been automatically called safe because he had the ball and he was blocking the plate, and you're not allowed to do that today. But I hit him so hard because what had happened, I think, is the ball was about from here to the glove when I hit him. So he was concentrating on catching the ball, and it just happened to hit him at the right time. And if you watch the clip, I bent over and asked him, was he okay? Okay, because the game was over. We won the game in extra innings. So a lot of people don't understand that he was a friend of mine that I took out to dinner the night before the game. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
I think it is.
And, I mean, it seemed like you had the bigger injury because you missed 3 games.
Oh, I missed the next 3
right?
games because of my knee.
Yeah.
Because of my knee hit his shoulder. He didn't miss any games. But I got all the criticism. Why? Because I played the game the way you're supposed to play the game. All out, all the time. Sometimes you get criticized. I didn't give a damn because the only people who criticized me were the American League fans. It's the truth.
Well, yeah.
When we played, listen, I played in 17 All-Star games, and we won 16 of them. The only one we lost was 1971 when Reggie Jackson hit that ball off of Doc Ellis that hit the pavilion on top of Detroit's Briggs Stadium. I never seen a ball hit that hard. That's the only game we lost in my 17 All-Star game career. Because when you're in the clubhouse with Aaron and Mays and Clemente and people like that, we took the game seriously. We wanted to prove to America or to the world that the National League was superior to the American League, which we were at that time. We were at that time. And I'll tell you why. One reason and one reason only. Think about this. We had all the African American players. And when you have the African American players, what do you create? Speed. We had speed. Willie Mays could run. Hank Aaron could run. Clemente could run. Willie Davis could run. Tommy Davis could run. Cleon Jones could run. We just had better players than the American League. They had good players. Yastrzemski was good. Kaline was good. Okay? Babe Ruth was the greatest. Ty Cobb was the greatest. But the National League in the 60s and 70s had better athletes than the American League, I believe. That's my own personal opinion. What do you believe?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, statistically, black players, are somewhat faster. It just is what it is. I mean, you could say it's racist or whatever else, but if you look at the stats,
I was never a racist of any kind. I just knew that all the teammates I had could run. They could play outfield. It was harder to hit. They covered more space. If you got three outfielders and they can all run, there's less holes in left center and right center than if you got a center fielder who can't run or a left fielder who can't run. That's just common sense.
I mean, do you think during that time, the early 70s, there was some degree of racism in the MLB?
Not as far as I was concerned. Matter of fact, well, there might have been in baseball in general, because I remember, I forgot what year it was. I'm just a kid, and I got called in the Cincinnati Reds office, and they told me I was hanging with the black players too much. That's a fact.
Wow.
And the reason I hung around with them, because they treated me like I was one of them. I'm talking about Frank and Veda and Jesse Gonder and Tommy Harper. Those were all my teammates, and they were all black. But I would go out to eat with them on the road because it seemed like I was too naive to even understand it. The white players didn't want to associate with me because I was arrogant. I was cocky. I was a local kid, Cincinnati kid. But Frank and Veda and those guys saw something that other players didn't see. And Frank would always take me out on the road to eat because I'm making $7,000 a year. And he was the best, if not the best player in the league at the time. And I didn't look at it. I was hanging out with black players. I was hanging out with teammates. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I've never had a racist bone in my body till this day. Some of my best friends are African American. I grew up with African Americans. Mm-hmm. Used to rob stores and banks with them. No, just kidding.
Okay, so how did the name The Big Red Machine come together?
Well, first of all, in '69, we had a really good offensive team, and Dave Bristol was the manager. Okay, he was the manager of the Reds in the '69 season. '68, '67, we were a great offensive team. May have been because I started hitting 300, and Frank was there, and Veda was there, and Darren was there. In '70, Sparky took over. So here's what I'm saying. Dave Bristol assembled the Big Red Machine. Sparky developed it. When Sparky came from San Diego, everybody said, Sparky who? Because he was the third base coach for San Diego. Most street smart guy I've ever met in my life. Understood people. He used to tell me, think about this. Here's the way he treated his players. 3 ways you can treat a player. Pat him on the ass, kick him in the ass, or leave him alone. You don't pat the guy and he's kicked. You don't kick the guy and he's left alone. If you're going to ask him to go to war for you every night, you got to know what makes him tick. And Sparky was the best at that. And then we were such a good offense. Bench came along at 68. Tommy Helms come along at 66. We just slowly but surely become the Big Red Machine. I don't know when that started. I really don't remember.
Well, yeah, you guys also had Joe Morgan, Tony Perez.
Well, we got Joe Morgan,
all Hall of Famers.
Yeah, well, Perez came up in 67.
Mm-hmm.
I come up 63. Maybe Helms was 66, Perez was 67, Bench was 68. So slowly but surely, the Big Red Machine was being developed. And Sparky was the beneficiary of developing the Big Red Machine. We had a good team, man. We had good players at every position. Even
you guys had an incredible
even our backup players were all stars. I'm talking about Griffey, Geronimo, Foster. Those were all good players. Foster had 52 home runs one year. Griffey had 300 several years. Geronimo won Gold Glove after Gold Glove. Concepcion, perennial all-star. And then the rest of the guys were Hall of Famers. Morgan, Bench, Perez, and me.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good team, man.
But you had a great team.
Yeah, we did.
You had a great team. So then in 73, the National League Championship versus the New York Mets.
Yeah.
What happened in game 3 in the 5th inning?
Somebody hit a double play ball. I forgot who it was. It might have been Bench.
Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan. Okay, Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into Bud Harrelson, and you're playing in the playoffs. I'm trying to break up a double play, and I did what we call a pop-up. A pop-up slide is when you slide and you come up. And when I came up, my elbow hit Bud in the nose. I didn't try to hit him in the nose. I was trying to break up a double play. And he called me a name I can't repeat on your show. Maybe I can. You want me to repeat it?
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, repeat it.
I stood into him, and he said, "You cocksucker." And I said, "You don't know me that well, Bud." And then Wayne Garrett come running in and started the whole melee. And then they threw so much garbage at me at right field, they had to call time to clean the field up. And the umpire actually told Sparky, left field I think it was. I was playing left field. And told Sparky to move me to Shea Stadium, to move me to center field because there was no fans in the stands. Sparky said, "I'm not screwing my defense up because you guys can't control these people." Then they told me not to go out that night for room service or have room service. Don't go out and eat in New York. And after all of that, I ended up losing that playoff. And the Mets went to the World Series. New York fans can be on the edge, to say the least.
Yeah.
But they're great.
No,
they're great fans.
that game was crazy.
Huh?
That game was that game was crazy. The whole bench cleared. There was a huge brawl, like you said. Actually, Sparky had to pull the whole team off the field until they restored order. You rarely see that.
Yeah, you don't see that very often. That's the only time I've ever seen that.
Exactly.
And that was mostly, and I'm not criticizing the Met fans because they support their team. They're good fans. But they were on edge. And we were on the verge of beating them to go to the World Series, and they don't want no part of that.
Right. I mean, it actually got so crazy that the Mets manager actually had to call Yogi Berra and Willie Mays
to go out to
calm down the crowd.
Go out to the left field. The guy missed me this far from the third deck of a Jack Daniels bottle.
Wow.
Empty bottle. This hit me in the head by this far. That's when the umpire decided to go out. But you know, the Met fan, he emptied the damn bottle before he threw it at me.
All right. So he was twisted. He was drunk as hell.
No, I was
okay.
He had bad aim, though.
I know, right? Okay. You guys ended up losing, even though you actually had a 381 batting average in the series. You hit the game-winning home run to tie
off
game
of Harry
one.
Parker, day before.
Yep.
In the 12th inning.
Yep. Okay, so unfortunately, you guys didn't go to the World Series that year.
Right.
But then the next year comes around, 1975. Now, you got moved to third base.
Right.
Was that different for you?
Well, I had some infield experience at second base before I went to left field. I remember Sparky called me in the office on Monday or Tuesday, and he said, "Pete, we got to get some offense in this lineup, and I need you to move from left field to third base so I can give George Foster a chance to get in the lineup." And I said, "Fine, Spark. When you want me to move?" He said, "Tomorrow." So I come out to the ballpark the next day with George Scherger, great coach, and he hit me ground balls for about 2 hours, every direction. And I remember we were playing against the Braves, and the first guy up was a guy named Ralph Garr, who could run like a deer. And he topped one over the pitcher's head, and I came in and scooped it up and threw him out, and we went on to win 2 straight World Series. Because I could see where me playing third base helped the team become a better team.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked hard as anybody to perfect third base. And it worked.
It definitely worked.
Yes,
because that year you guys got to the World Series against the Boston Red Sox. How did you feel going into that game?
The game or series?
Well, the series. How did you feel going into that series?
I felt good because we had a good year. If you win a pennant, you're having a good year. I didn't know much about the Red Sox at that time, just what the scouting report said. Hey, that was my first. That wasn't my first World Series. My first World Series, 72. And the playoffs was bigger than a World Series, to say the least, against the Mets. In 75, we felt like we belonged playing against the Red Sox. And I had a real good series that year. Matter of fact, I won MVP in that series.
Exactly. So you guys win in 7 against the Boston Red Sox. And this is the first championship that you guys won since 1940. People call this the greatest World Series ever.
Well, I think it was. And the reason I think it was is because 6 of the 7 games were one-run games. And, of course, Carbo hit the home run to tie the game in Game 6. And Fisk hit the ball over my head at third base. But unfortunately, it went over George Foster's head, too, in left field. And they won that game 7-6. So all the games were one-run games. And you had so many good players on each team. You had our outfit, and you had Yastrzemski, you had Dewey Evans, Jim Rice, Freddie Lynn, Louis Tiant, Bill Lee. I mean, they had a lot of good players too. Rico Petrocelli. They had a lot of good players too, and it was a World Series made in heaven because there were so many good players. So many good players playing against each other. And that's why it ended up being the type of World Series you thought it might be.
Well, yeah, like you said, you won the MVP for that. I mean, how did it feel to win your first World Series and get the MVP on top of it?
Well, even extra special because where was I born? Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right there. Yep, right down the street.
Yeah, so, but I hit 370 in that World Series?
Yep, that's exactly
10 for 27, something like that. And I had four
hits,
walks or so.
Exactly.
4 walks or so. So I had a really good offensive series. And it seems like every time I got a hit, it meant something. Mm-hmm. When you're hitting in front of Morgan, Bench, and Perez, every hit does mean something.
Well, yeah. I mean, not only did you win the World Series, you got the MVP, Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. You got the Hickok belt as the top professional athlete of the year. I mean, at that point, you were a legitimate superstar athlete. I mean, did things change in your life after all these accolades that year?
Not really. What that changes is how you feel about the game what do you expect about the game? You know, what do you know what you have to put into it now to get that much out of it? And that's one thing I did learn after a 75 season, that the sky's the limit. So reach for the sky every day. You know, we come back to next year and we bettered ourselves. What do? We swept the Yankees 4 in a row. That doesn't happen very often. You know, you go from the best World Series ever to one of the most boring series ever. The only thing I enjoyed about the 76 World Series, other than we won, was playing against Thurman Munson. He was a hell of a player. And I got to talk to him every time up because he's a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and another guy that I didn't get to talk to because he played left field, who's a great guy even today, Lou Piniella.
Mm.
I mean, those are two of my favorite players on the Yankees. Got to talk to Thurman because when you hit, you're in the batter's box. But Lou's in left field, you get to talk to him very much, unless you're selling beer in the front row.
Okay, let's talk about 76 for a second. So in 76, you guys were the only team since the expansion of the playoffs to go undefeated in the postseason.
Yeah. We swept the Phillies.
You guys completely on fire that year.
Yeah. We swept the Phillies and we swept the Yankees. Correct?
Right. Yep. Well, yeah, that year,
well, the hardest thing to do there was sweeping the Phillies because it's only 3 out of 5. In our case, it was 3 out of 3. The World Series is 4 out of 7. So we won 7 straight postseason games.
Exactly. You guys play the Phillies in the World Series and you win again. Now
I did good in that Philly series too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were a major force in that.
Huh?
You were a major force in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you have 2 World Series.
I could always hit the Philly pitching staff. Don't ask me why, but I just could.
Okay. So then we get to 78.
Yeah.
You hit your 3,000th hit on May 5th.
Yeah.
The 13th player in Major League history to do that. Once you did that, was 4,000 already on your radar? Okay, I hit the 3,000.
Well, based on my age next. And the way I felt, you never look ahead that far. But I was pretty fortunate because I never had major injuries. And I could still hit, I could still play. You know, it wasn't like I needed 10 more years to get 1,000 hits. You know, so I didn't realize I could break the record, okay, until 84. When I came from Montreal back to Cincinnati as player manager. Okay? Because I played that year the last 6 weeks of the season as player manager, and I hit 370. So that kind of gave me the opportunity to play in 85. Now, if I'd have came back to Cincinnati as player manager and hit 170, I probably wouldn't have took a roster spot for the 75 season. Or excuse me, the 85 season. So I earned the right to pursue Ty Cobb strictly because of what I did the year before, going back to Cincinnati as player manager. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and we'll get to all that. That's part of that's part of the whole story. But what I wanted to say was that same year that you hit 3,000. That was when you started on your 44.
Off of Steve Rogers.
Yep, off of Steve Rogers, exactly, at Riverfront Stadium. But that same year is when you started going on your 44-game hitting streak.
Right. 78.
And right, this was 78. And of course, Joe DiMaggio has the record of 56 games.
Right.
Now, did you feel at that point like you're seriously going to beat it? Because like you said, it's a lot of skill, but it's also some luck involved.
Well, there's a lot of luck involved, but the whole thing with me that particular period of time was earning. I'm 44 years old, earning the right to play the next year. right? Because if I'd have came back as player manager and flopped, I wouldn't have been on the roster in 85. But because I hit 370, that's a legitimate 370 for 6.5 weeks of the season. It gave me the opportunity to play in 85, and that's when I broke the record. But the record carried me because I knew I was within range. I wasn't gonna get 4160 or 4170. I was either gonna get 4193 or not another hit. You know, I wasn't gonna finish second or third on the hit list. I was gonna be number one.
Okay, so you're going on this 44 game hitting streak, and then you guys play the Atlanta Braves with Jean Garber. You were pretty upset over the way he actually handled that whole situation.
Well, first of all, McWilliams started that game, left-hander. And first of all, I want everybody to know that a pitcher is not supposed to go out there and lay it right down the middle for you. You understand what I'm saying? And what pissed me off about Garber was the score was 17-4, favor the Braves. 9th inning, 2 outs. Nobody on. If I'd have went up to bat without a bat, just stepped in the batter's box, I'd have walked on 4 pitches. So I was pissed that he didn't come right at me. You understand what I'm saying? Because he knew I had a swing. Because the streak's at the end. And I'm not going to swing at a ball that's going to be 3 feet outside or bounce on the dirt. He had me by the balls. And when he struck me out, he jumped 5 feet in the air. It was like a World Series to him. And I'm just saying, why didn't you come right at me? If you're going to get me out. But don't make me go fishing for a hit, because I was not a bad ball hitter. That's what pissed me off.
Well, it was a hell of a run anyways.
Yeah,
44 games is still 44 games.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But that's what I was paid to do, hit. I just happened to do it 44 straight days.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, that streak,
that next year,
that streak did one thing. I think that streak really helped baseball, because everywhere I went, once I got over 30, 32, 33, the ballparks were selling out. So I made the owners a lot of money in 78 by going on a hitting streak. You know, like I said, there was 40-some thousand at the game in Atlanta, where they're used to drawing 12 or 14,000. You know, that's 25 more thousand people. That's a lot of bucks in Ted Turner's pocket. He knew it. But what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Okay, so that next year, you became a free agent.
Yeah, 79.
Now, 79, exactly. So, considering the massive amount of success with the Reds, why didn't they keep you?
Well, I can't answer that question, but they weren't into paying big salaries. And at the time, they kind of made up their mind between me and Morgan. And Morgan was a little bit younger, so they signed Morgan to that contract instead of me. But I got to pick where I wanted to go. You know, I could have went.
38. You were 38 at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, for baseball, you're right. You know, there's probably some questions as to your ability, but you were still on fire, you know, in terms of the stats.
Well, they knew my dad played football when he was 43. So they knew my history. They knew I didn't drink. They knew I didn't smoke. They knew I took care of myself. So, you know, your career is going to last longer if you take care of yourself, as opposed to going out every night and getting drunk. You know, so I could still play. I could really still play.
Well, you ended up getting picked up by the Phillies.
Yeah. I chose
And
the
at the time,
Phillies. I didn't get picked up by the Phillies. I
you
chose the Phillies. Why did I choose?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, you were a free agent at the time, so you get
Yeah.
to choose where you want to go. Exactly.
I chose the Phillies because I was good friends with Schmidt, Lazinski, Boa. That was the guts of that order. And I always figured that in the 70s, the Philly problem was the Reds. So if I leave the Reds, they don't have that problem no more. And I chose right, because we went to the series in 80, we went to the series in 83, playoffs in 82. We were a good team.
Yep.
See, I was used to being around Hall of Fame players. Even when I played in Montreal, I had 3 Hall of Fame players in that lineup: Dawson, Raines, and Carter. You know, I had the least amount of Hall of Famers with Philly than I did Montreal or Cincinnati as teammates.
Well, when you joined the Phillies, you signed a 4-year, $3.2 million contract, which at the time made you the highest paid athlete in all of team sports.
Correct. I was 800 some thousand a year.
Yeah. I mean,
and I played a new position.
Days,
I played a new position too.
Right. I mean, these days, I mean, even in today's dollars, that's not a huge amount of money. But back then, like I said, you were the highest paid athlete in all of sports.
Right.
Did you buy anything special after you signed that deal?
I don't remember. I was just, it was a load off your shoulders. You know, it was hard to turn down Ted Turner. It was hard to turn down Augie Bush. I mean, when you think about it, it ended up okay for me, but Augie Bush offered me a Budweiser distributorship.
Okay.
I wish I'd have took that.
Right.
I'd still be making bucks today.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you joined the Phillies, and the first year you guys missed the postseason.
I did good though.
But you did good. But then that next year, you guys get to the World Series versus the Kansas City Royals.
Yes.
1 in 6 games.
Yes.
But more importantly than winning that World Series, that was the first Phillies World Series title in 86 years. 1 million people hit the streets.
The parade?
Yeah,
most awesome thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
We were on floats going out to JFK, which was 65,000 sitting waiting for us.
Was that your favorite World Series win, you think, in retrospect?
No. First one.
The first one.
First one.
Yeah.
That was a big one. I mean, because it meant
that was a big one, yeah.
Because it meant so much to so many people.
Right.
You know, you said first time in 80 years?
In 86 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
There were probably 3 guys that were living then were at the parade.
I know, right? And they were probably about 1 year old when, you know, they won last time.
But the Philly fans, they're the greatest. I mean, I love the Philly fans. I mean, they love the Phillies. And I got to choose where I wanted to go. I didn't want to go to the Yankees. I didn't think I could help Atlanta win. I didn't want to go to St. Louis to replace Lou Brock. You know, there was a lot of different things that added up to going somewhere like Philadelphia, because they had good players. You know, when you got the Schmidts and the Bones and the Trios and Boas and Lazinskis and Maddoxes and McBrides and McCarver, those guys were all really part of my select in Philadelphia.
Well, then next year in 83, you actually had the worst season of your career. You only batted .245 with 121 hits, and they ended up benching you during the last part of the season.
Yeah.
And, you know, that caused a problem, obviously. You know, even though they played, you know, they got to the World Series again, They played the Orioles. They lost. But at that point, what made you decide that you were done with the Phillies?
What made me decide what?
That you were done with the Phillies?
Just because they benched me. You know, when you're 43, 42 years old and you get benched, the handwriting's on the wall. And they had a young prospect, really nice guy, Len Matuzak, who they wanted to get playing time. I understood that, and I thanked him for the opportunity and went about my business.
Right. And then you went to the Montreal Expos.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fun because we had some good players. That's another team where I had 3 Hall of Famers on the team. Raines, Dawson, and Gary Carter. Had Francona, had Wally, had Chris Spire, Steve Rogers, Charlie Lee, Jeff Reardon. We had good players. That was one of them deals, and I'm not bad-mouthing anybody when I say this, but Bill Verdon was the manager. And really a nice guy. But Bill Verdon wasn't the right guy for that group of guys. We needed a Sparky Anderson, Danny Ozark type of manager. Not a guy that never said anything and was so laid back. You know, and I think that caught up with us. You know, because a player plays like his team's attitude. And we had kind of a different attitude with that team. I don't know if it was playing in Montreal or what it was, but we should have did better than we did.
Well,
I think the first mistake he made was putting me in left field and putting Francona at first base. He should have put me at first base and Francona in left field. Because I'm kind of a noisemaker wherever I played. And you can be more of a noisemaker at first base than you can at left field. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not that I did poorly in left field, but I just come off of 5 great years at first base with Philly. So why you want to change that? I wasn't a lot better at first baseman than Francona was.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was with the Expos that you hit your 4,000th
opening
career
day
hit.
Off of Jerry Kuzman.
Yep. Which meant that you were the second player to ever do that after Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
How did that feel? A huge accomplishment.
Well, accomplishments feel different if you're running out of time. Now, if that had been the last day of the season and you know you got to get a hit to get 4,000, it creates a lot of problems. But because it's opening day, I got 162 games to get 1 hit for 4,000. Get 193 for the all-time record. So that's the way I approach things. But it was fun when it happened. I don't think they were used to mementos up in Montreal with the baseball team.
Yeah.
With the baseball team.
Yeah.
I don't even think the players understood to come out to second base congratulate me because I hit a double. It's like everybody was real shy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you played 95 games with the Expos, and then you got traded back to the Reds.
As player manager.
Exactly. Now,
it's a big deal.
Right. Well, were you the last player manager in the MLB?
Yeah. The one for me was Lou Boudreau for the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
That can't happen today.
I mean, explain what a player manager is exactly.
You're the boss. You're the boss. You make the lineup out. They go by your set of rules. See, you couldn't be a player manager today because it's a full day. It's a full day's work if you're a manager. because you're not only responsible for yourself as a player manager, but you're responsible for the other 24 players. And you just don't have enough time in the day to be a player manager today. Because the most important thing for a manager today, I think, it's a couple really important things. One, getting the most out of your players. But two, and maybe more importantly, you got to entertain the press. You got to take care of the press. No matter what the situation is, you got to talk to the press. You can't be a player manager today and say, I don't want to talk to the press today. I'm not talking. Don't come in my office. It doesn't work that way. And because of that, it limits your time. I almost start running out of time to take batting practice. You know what I mean? Because I had to be with the press.
Mm-hmm.
Had to be entertaining all the guys who followed the Expos.
Mm-hmm.
But I did okay with it. I mean, I've always understood the press. I've always been the press's delight. Why? Because I always cooperated with them. I always had something to say. They'd always come to me or Bench. Okay? Me or Gary Carter. Me or Mike Schmidt. And if they're busy, you got to talk to me.
Okay. So now you're playing back in Cincinnati again. And then September 11th, 1985 happens.
Yeah.
Where you broke Ty Cobb's all-time hit record with 4,192 hits. That was the first time you actually cried on the field.
Yeah. But it took 9 minutes. I got a 9-minute standing ovation. Actually, it took about 7.5. And not till I looked up in the sky, I started thinking about my dad or my uncle who signed me. That's what brought the tears, not getting the hit. I don't know if you've ever been anywhere where someone gave you a 9-minute standing ovation. I doubt it, which is not a bad thing. That was the only time in my career during that 9 minutes I didn't know what to do on the field. They took the base. I'm standing out in front of this 52,000 people going crazy for not 6 minutes, not 7, 9. And I don't know if they made me feel uncomfortable. It was the first inning, so we had all night to play the game. And I ended up scoring 2 runs that night. We won the game 2-0. Next time up, I got a triple. I wonder what it would have been like if I'd have got a triple instead of a single. And when I got the single to beat the record, this is the type of player I was. I go back to first, and I'm pissed that I didn't take 2. Because when the ball hit in front of Martinez in left field, it took a real high hop. And no outfielder is going to throw me out at second if the ball takes a high hop where he's got to jump up to catch it. You understand what I'm saying? It was on AstroTurf. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying I should have had a double instead of a single. I should have kept going. Because I got to first just as fast as I always got to first. Mm-hmm. Then your son comes out. And the first guy to come out was Tommy Helms, who I played with in 1962 at Macon. I hit before him. I hit first and he hit second for Macon. And I scored 136 runs that year because he hit behind me and got a couple hundred hits and hit 340, and I hit 330. So we were offense from the beginning. It's all about teammates, buddy.
Yep. Well, a hell of an accolade. Because at the end of the day, nobody has beaten your record or even come close.
Well, I'll die the hit king. If I had a bet, my sons would die the hit king. Because that's not the way they play today. They don't play long enough. They make too much money, which is good for them. And you got to play over 20 years to get 4,000 hits. That's getting 200 a year. And only one or two guys will get 200 every year. And it's not the same guy. You understand what I'm saying? It's hard to get 4,000 hits. Hell, it's hard to get 4,000 at bats. It is.
Yeah.
But when you never get hurt, and you can hit a baseball, and you play every day, and you're on a good team, things will just keep multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. I was lucky, man. I was lucky. I was always in good timing. Good spot. It's a good spot in the order. Never hit less than third in my career, ever in a game. And I played 3,500 games.
Yeah.
Even as a rookie, I led off.
Well, in 2010, Deadspin did a report, and they claimed that you were Deadspin. It's a website.
Yeah.
They did a report, and they claimed that you were corking bats during '85 as you were approaching the record.
I didn't cork no bats. What I need to cork bats for? If I cork bats, I'd make more outs because the ball would go further, and those line drive would be outs now. You understand what I'm saying? We had a couple cork bats that we used in BP because that's all for your confidence. But I'd be scared to go up to bat with a cork bat because if the umpire checked on it or the opposition checked on it, it would ruin your whole career. No one ever caught me with a cork bat in the batter's box in the big leagues.
Well, according to the report, they said that two sports memorabilia collectors who own some of your game-used bats, they actually X-rayed the bats.
Well, wait, let me stop you right there. Okay?
Okay.
Because I got one friend of mine in Cincinnati. His name's Arnold Metz. To my knowledge, is the only person in this world that ever got a game-used bat from me, and I gave it to him at their opening day one of the years I was in Cincinnati. So for these guys to say they bought a memorabilia bat at a card show that's got a cork in it, they're full of bullshit. Okay, it's impossible because they didn't get it from me. You know, I wouldn't. I batted 16,000 times. Okay, and I never remember breaking a bat during the game in the batter's box. So who's getting all these game-used bats? Unless they stole them from me somewhere. And when I went to the ballpark and I went to the bench, I had a little thing like a pool thing. You carry pool balls, pool sticks in, and I took two bats to the bench, put them in a bat rack. After the game, take them out, put them back in my bag, and go back and put them in my locker. No one ever got in my locker and took bats to the bench. I was in charge of my bats. And like I said, I never broke a bat in a game. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Okay.
Just like I
had to bring it up though.
Just like I never remember, and I'm sure I did. I never remember hitting a pop-up to a third baseman or a first baseman in foul ground. I just didn't do it. Does that make any sense? And I probably did with 15,000 at bats, but I never can remember hitting a pop fly to a first baseman in foul ground or a third baseman in foul ground. Just like I never remember breaking a bat in a game. I used to have a problem with bats on the end because I used them so much that they'd splinter. Not the handle, the end. Because I wipe them down with alcohol every night to clean my bats off every night. That's why I took them to my locker. No bat boy ever took care of my bats. That was my job. That was my tool.
All right, there you have it. Well, you know,
that's your first bad story so far.
That's my first bad story? Okay. We'll see how many more I have along the way. Well, in June 15th, 2016, Ichiro Suzuki, he hit his 4,257th career hit. But that's counting all the Japanese league hits that he had also.
Okay.
And I guess...
Let me stop you right there.
Mhm.
Okay. If that's the case, why didn't they count my minor league hits?
Right, exactly. I was about to say that.
So
because
I played in Japan. Japan's like playing in AAA.
right.
I mean, I'm not bad mouthing them. You know,
No, I was about to say that.
Ichiro could hit, but he didn't get as many hits as me. I got
I agree.
42-56 plus I got several hundred in the minor leagues. So they want to count his Japanese hits, don't want to count my American AA and A ball hits. That's just people who don't like Pete Rose.
Right. Well, because you actually made a comment. You said, I'm not trying to take away from Ichiro. He's had a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
But the next thing you know, you'll be counting his high school hits.
Well, unless you get him in the big leagues, I don't want to hear about him.
I agree.
Because, and I got a lot of respect for the Japanese players, but it's not the major leagues. I played over there. I know all about it. I went all.
Yep.
I played over there. I know all about the Japanese players. And
yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. Okay, so then 1986 comes around. You're age 45 at this point.
Yeah.
You got dropped from the Reds 40-man roster,
Right.
To make room for the pitcher, Pat Pacillo.
Patillo? Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember him.
Right. And at that point, you essentially retired as a player.
I actually was playing that year some, and I just decided, because one of my best friends in life, even today, is a guy named Tony Perez. He was chasing the all-time Latino record for home runs. And instead of continuing to platoon with Tony Perez, I just quit playing and let him play the last month of the season every day. So I guess what I'm saying, in reality, I never did retire. I never did announce I'm retiring. I just quit playing.
Right.
And I always thought if someone would ever beat my record, I could still come back and get one more hit.
Get one more hit?
Yeah.
Well, right. Because by that time, you had played for 24 seasons.
Yeah.
You had a lifetime batting average of 303. You had gotten 4,256 hits. You had played an all-time record for games played at 3,562. You had won 3 World Series, 3 batting titles, an MVP, 2 Gold Gloves, and a Rookie of the Year award. You were basically leaving the game as one of the most celebrated players ever.
You know one award? You know one award I never won to be eligible for?
What's that?
Comeback Player of the Year.
Comeback Player of the Year. No, you didn't get that.
That's one thing you never won on your resume. Go ahead.
Right. Right. So essentially, after you retired or whatever you want to call it, you stayed on with the Reds and became a manager.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you decide to do that?
Well, because I could. I was making good money, and I'm still associated with the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my players. Had a lot of faith in my players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Paul O'Neills and the Eric Davises and Barry Larkins and Chris Sabos. And, you know, those were all really good players. That's why they won the championship in 1990 after I left in 89.
So that in 88, you're a manager and you guys had a home game against the Mets. Things went a little crazy that game.
What happened?
Well, Mookie Wilson, he hit what looked like a routine ground ball to the shortstop. But the throw to first base was wide and, you know, it pulled the first baseman's foot off the bag. And then the umpire, Dave Pallone, he didn't make the safe call. You know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Where the guy scored from second?
Yeah.
Because
the first baseman waited for the call instead of making a play at the plate.
Because Dave Pallone was down on his knee making a late call. And by the time I know he called him safe, the guy had already rounded third from second base and scored a winning run. That pissed me off because he didn't give me time to react.
Right.
And that's
so you got on the field and you started arguing with the umpire.
Yeah. Very seldom.
What happened next?
I shoved him because he poked me. He poked me right here and made me bleed. Well, like that, I saw him and I pushed him. And I got a 30-day suspension. So that was a deal where an umpire put his hands on me instead of me putting hands on the umpire.
Well, Pallone, he wrote a book, and there was a whole chapter about that incident. He said that he never touched you, and the National League personnel
where did blood come from my face? Right here. Right here.
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying he denied it.
I was there. I was there. Yeah. I remember. So for him to write a book and say he didn't touch me, he's a lying piece of shit. I hate to say that, but that's what he is. And I like Dave Pallone. You know. But for him to say he didn't touch me, why else would I react the way I reacted?
Well, after that incident with Pallone happened, all hell broke loose. Fans started throwing radios and cigarette lighters on the field. They had to suspend the game for 15 minutes. And when the dust settled, well, Pallone actually ended up leaving the field, and they had to finish the game with 3 umpires. And after all was said and done, you got suspended for 30 days, which is the longest suspension ever for an on-field incident with a manager. Do you feel like that was overkill?
Yeah, because he's the one that screwed up. First of all, he missed the call. Secondly, then he poked me almost in the eye. So I guess I'm lucky I didn't punch him. Just shoved him. Because normally I would punch somebody that did that. Because the fans could see, first of all, they could see he blew the call. You know, down on his knees, acting like Hollywood.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, life's too short to even worry about something like that.
Okay, so then 1989 rolls around.
Yeah.
Now, reports start to circle that you were betting on baseball games. And originally, you were formally questioned in February of that year. And you denied the allegations. And by that time, Giamatti, was running things. And, it was relatively quiet until Sports Illustrated actually released a detailed report on the allegations. They say that you had placed bets on baseball games on March 21st, 1989. It dated back to April 3rd. Then rumors started to circle that you weren't paying some of the bookies. They were saying that the mob was involved and so forth. And you see what I'm saying? The story started to get crazy.
First of all, why would I be betting on a baseball game in March? It's a spring training game. Is that report saying I bet on spring training games? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, we didn't play no Major League games in March. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, okay. Well, hold on. This might be wrong. I think maybe that the Sports Illustrated came out on that date. So I don't think it was saying you were betting on that date, but I think that's when the report came out. So that might actually be my mistake.
Just tell you, 89 is when I start betting on baseball. It's not a secret. Not a secret. Because I believed in my players, I believed in my team, and I believed we were going to win every game. And I was a gambler. So if you're a gambler, you're kind of looking for an edge. And the edge was that I'm running the game. I didn't run the game any differently betting on it than not betting on it. I've managed every game to win the game. And no one will ever say you could tell I was gambling on this or that because of the way I run the game. I never made a blunder in a decision, whether it was this pinch hitter or that pinch hitter or this relief pitcher or that relief pitcher. I was always consistent with the way I run the game. Now ask your questions.
Okay. Well, they brought in a lawyer named John M. Dowd to investigate the whole situation.
His strike force guy. He used to put mafia types behind bars.
Right. According to the report, they're saying that you allegedly bet on 52 Reds games in 1987, and you were betting a minimum of $10,000 a day.
No, that's not true. I wasn't making that much money to bet $10,000 a day. See, I get a kick out of you guys in the press. You always go on these goddamn reports. Reports from 50 years ago. How am I supposed to know what's in a report 50 years ago? Can you tell you got me pissed off right now? Can you tell that?
I could tell.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hear about reports. I want someone to sign their goddamn name to a report. Betting $10,000 a day. Christ, I'm not making enough bet $10,000 a day. And you're going to also say I stiff bookmakers? I've never stiffed a bookmaker in my life. Okay? But the report said I did. Who's the report? John Dowd?
Well, the report also said there was no evidence that you actually bet against the Reds.
Well, no shit. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. That's yesterday's newspapers.
Right. Right. But unfortunately, the way it's set out, that you violated a rule where you can't bet against the game.
I understood. I understand I broke the rules. Okay? Let me explain something to you. I broke the rules. It cost me $100 million. That's what it cost me by breaking the rules. So I don't want to hear about breaking the rules. $100 million it cost me betting on baseball.
Right.
So who got penalized the most? You? The guy give the report? I did.
You did.
I did.
Right. Well, initially you denied it and you filed a lawsuit.
Well, I denied it because my lawyers told me to, because I didn't think they had any proof.
Okay. So you filed the lawsuit and it went through the whole process and you guys went into negotiations. And then on August 24th, 1989, you voluntarily accepted a permanent place on baseball's ineligible list. Now, from what I understand, originally when you signed that deal, it was only supposed to be for 1 year, right?
Yeah.
But then Giamatti died, 8 days later?
8 days.
7 days later.
God rest his soul.
Had he lived, do you think that things would have worked out a lot better?
Yes. Yes. Because to be honest with you, I was manager when Giamatti was the league president, National League. You remember that? Or do you? Okay. And he'd be on the road occasionally when we were on the road playing. And once a month or every so often, I would go up to his room and talk about the game of baseball, how we can make it better. And he was a fan. And I truly believe if he hadn't died of a heart attack, but there again, he was 80 pounds overweight and he smoked 6 packs of cigarette a day, which is very unusual for a guy as intelligent as Bart Giamatti. I believe he would have given me a second chance. Of course, when he died, who took over? Fay Vincent. Then when he left, who took over? Bud Selig. Now, none of those guys are going to step on each other's toes by giving me a second chance. I could have beat my wife. I could have robbed a store or robbed a bank. I could have did this or did that. I could have smoked marijuana every day of my life. I'd have been given a second chance. And I understand what happened in 1919 with the Black Sox scandal, probably more so than most. But this is 1919. This was 1989.
Yeah, I mean, you got the short end of the stick
Well,
because, like
no,
you said,
I'll
it was
never,
a 1
I'll
year.
never
It was
say-
a 1 year
I'll
deal.
never say I got the short end of the stick because I'm the one that caused the problem.
Mhm.
I'm the one that made a mistake. Okay, I'm the one that made a mistake. But the one that made a mistake should be given a second chance.
I agree.
I didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't bet against my team. I just showed respect and love for my players because I thought I could win every game. And I won a lot more than I lost.
Mhm.
And maybe I knew that going in, that in the long run, I'm going to win a lot more games than I'm going to lose. So I'm going to come out ahead. Does that make any sense?
No, of course. I mean, did you feel, because right around that time, didn't you go into therapy for gambling addiction?
Well, it didn't last long because I didn't understand what they were saying.
Okay.
It was a professor at Cincinnati, Dr. Hilliard, I believe his name was.
Mhm.
Because it's like going to a Gambling Anonymous. I never did. But to hear some of the accusations that they did, I didn't do none of that. It's like going to a place that you smoke and you're trying to stop smoking, and they start saying this happened, that happened, this happened, this happened. I'm sitting there listening to these guys talk about gambling. I'm saying, what the hell are they doing? All I did is bet on a baseball game, or a football game, or a basketball game.
Mhm.
You know. Now what happens today? Everybody bets on every sport. Baseball's got gambling all over its channels.
Yeah. I mean, I just interviewed Tim Donaghy. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was the
referee?
NBA ref.
Yeah.
Yeah, who got caught betting on his own games. And, he went to prison and, he lost his career and everything else like that. There was some mob situations going on. And, listen, he described himself as a degenerate gambler. Would you consider at one point you were a degenerate gambler?
As bad as you could be. Absolutely, no doubt about it. It like I said, it consumed my life when I would be on the road. I would hear that USA Today hit outside the door. They would drop the newspaper outside your hotel room door, and it would be about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd wake up. This was before computers and everything, just to see what the lines were in the games that day.
He knew that he had a serious problem.
He was shaving points and stuff.
Well, no. Not according to him, no.
If he's betting on a basketball game and the team is -2 and they're up 3 with 5 seconds to go, and he calls it a foul, and now the team loses by 1, and he had the 2, he wins. So
No,
that's a tricky situation.
It is. It is. And according to him, based on, I read through the whole report. Based on the NBA investigation, they couldn't find any bad calls that he made in order to win. But from his point of view, he knew which refs had problems with certain players. So he was able to win 70 or 80% of the time just knowing the relationships between the refs and the players.
If you did that much research on him, then you have to know that I had no shady situations as a manager of the Reds. I think you'll say that. I think you would say that.
I'm saying that right now.
I mean, I'm saying it because there wasn't any. There wasn't any.
But unfortunately, the rules are the rules. You got caught in the middle of that situation.
I understand.
Yeah. That whole era kind of set off a bad chain of events for you because after you had to leave baseball.
Let me explain something to you. Okay, you're talking about the IRS where I underpaid my taxes by 3%?
Correct.
3%?
Yes.
I paid them 160-some thousand. They said I owed them 180. That's the IRS you're talking about?
That's the IRS.
As long as we got that straight. As long as we got that straight.
Exactly.
It's not like I didn't pay taxes. I paid $2.2 million in the year in question.
Right. Well, according to reports, they're basically saying that you did pay taxes
again.
But they're saying that you didn't pay taxes on selling autographs and memorabilia and some of your horse race winnings, which was added up to about $162,000, which in the grand scheme of things is a very small amount considering the whole amount. Now, with most people, I've been audited. If you owe some money, you pay the penalties. Why do you think you got sent to prison over that situation?
I don't know. It's a good question. Well, because it came at a time when the IRS tries to get across to everybody. Don't duck us, we'll find you. Now, if they're going to find me, they're going to find John Doe.
Mm-hmm. Well, you end up doing 5 months in a medium security prison camp. You got fined $50,000. Now, this is the first time you've ever been locked up. How was that whole experience like?
Well, there were no locks. I mean, we had a barracks. USP Marion is the most secure prison in the country, or was.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, when there was 250 inmates, I was the only one guilty. And they all told me their story.
Mm-hmm. They were all innocent.
They were all innocent. Every 249 of them were innocent.
Okay. So you got out in January 7th, 1991. You had to pay $366,000 in back taxes and interest, and you had to do 1,000 hours of community service. So on February 4th, 1991, the Hall of Fame voted formally to exclude individuals on the permanently ineligible list from getting into the Hall of Fame.
Change the rules on my behalf again.
They changed the rules on your behalf.
Yeah.
Had you not been banned, you'd have absolutely gotten in the Hall of Fame starting in 1992. I mean, the numbers are indisputable. How hard did you take it when you found out you're not getting into the Hall of Fame?
I don't remember. It was difficult, but hey, it's been almost 30 years now. So eventually you got to quit worrying about it. I know what kind of player I was. My fans know what kind of player I was. My teammates, my opposition knew what kind of player I was. You know what I mean? And you're not going to put you in the Hall of Fame because you bet on your team to win. Do you really think I'm the only player ever to bet on baseball? No one can be that naive.
Yeah.
So I'll have to wait till I die, and I won't be part of it. But that's when they'll put me in after I die, which would be too late for my family and my friends.
Well, yeah. I mean, along the way, in 1982, you petitioned, to try to get your name into the Hall of Fame. You got denied. In 2015, you applied again. Once again, denied. It was one of those things where you definitely tried. And me and most of the rest of the fans feel like you should be in there. But, the guys that are in charge have consistently not agreed with you and have banned you the whole time.
One guy.
One guy.
The commissioner.
Well, the commissioner. Right. But there's been a couple of different commissioners along the way.
Well, they're not going to shit on the commissioner before them by overruling something, right? So they're going to agree with him.
Right. Because I remember in 2015, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, said that you did not have a mature understanding of your wrongful conduct and the damage it had done to the game. And for these reasons, he felt you'd be an unacceptable risk to let you to the Hall of Fame.
I want to, can you explain to me what harm I did to the game? I know what harm I did to myself and my family. What harm did I do to the game?
Yeah.
Can Mr. Manfred explain that to me? Would what they do to the game today? It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Rob Manfred. I think he's doing a good job. But he's finally got the steroids and stuff cleaned up, we think. Until next month, they'll find someone else.
Well, I mean, how do you feel? I mean, I've interviewed Jose Canseco, who's not in the Hall of Fame. Well, in 2007, you received 6 Hall of Fame votes, which was 1.1% of the ballots. You needed 5% to get that. Do you feel like you'll ever get in the Hall of Fame?
No, and I should not because my numbers don't qualify. I was injured too many times. I didn't play enough. If I were not injured, I think I ranked 12 or 13th in the world home runs per at bat. I just didn't play enough. So my numbers just don't qualify. Yes, if I would have played 20 years, 22 years, at the home run per at bat ratio, I would have hit over 750 home runs, maybe 800 home runs. But my career was cut short and I was too injured.
Barry Bonds, not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Barry Bonds
Sammy
belongs
Sosa.
in the Hall of Fame. Jose Canseco don't. He don't have
Okay.
Hall of Fame numbers.
Okay, but Barry Bonds definitely does.
No question about it. And I don't know what Barry Bonds did. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what Barry Bonds did. All I can tell you he's a friend of mine, and he had a tremendous record. And if he took steroids, it didn't take him his whole career. He was a really good player when he played for the Pirates.
Mm-hmm. Sammy Sosa, not in the Hall of Fame.
He's got pretty good numbers.
Yep. Roger Clemens, not in the Hall of Fame.
Joke. 7 Cy Youngs.
Alex Rodriguez, not in the Hall of Fame.
700 home runs. What you're telling me in a roundabout way, the Hall of Fame is tainted. How can you have a Hall of Fame and not have Roger Clemens or Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame? What the hell kind of
it's crazy.
The Hall of Fame? What kind of Hall of Fame is it? Is it the Hall of Good? I mean, guys make mistakes. Roger Clemens won 7 Cy Youngs. Barry Bonds hit over 750 home runs. Yep. He didn't take steroids during the whole 750.
Yeah.
And why did Roger Clemens get caught? Because Andy Pettit snitched on him?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's good for the Hall of Fame. I don't think it's good for the Hall of Fame.
No, I agree.
And if you want to put an asterisk by my name, go ahead and put it.
Well, that's what happened.
Because gambling did not help me get any of those damn hits, score any of those damn runs, win any of those damn games.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because none of the gambling accusations were done while you were a player. They were done when you were a manager. So, yeah. There we go. Well, in 1999...
It's like a jockey betting on his horse to win the Derby.
Right.
That's what it's like.
That's what it's like. I agree. Well, in 1999, you were chosen for the MLB All-Century team. So, and they would do this to you throughout the years. They would ban you from everything, but then pick you for certain things when they needed the promotion.
When they needed this, they'd be in my corner.
Right. Was that kind of annoying?
And they think that we don't understand that or we don't see that. You know, when you rule against a guy every time something financially is in front of them, I guess they don't.
Mm-hmm. Well, at that all-century team game, after the game, Jim Gray basically went really hard at you.
Yeah.
In the post-game.
Well, first of all, today Jim Gray's a friend of mine. However, before that game, Jim Gray lied to me. Okay, first of all, this is my first day back at the ballpark. And as you know, I got the biggest ovation.
Yep.
And Jim said, "Can I interview you after you're walking off the field? Nothing negative. I won't talk about gambling." Everything he asked me was about gambling.
Oh no, I watched it. He went really hard at you.
Yeah.
As an interviewer,
So that
kind of
caught me off guard because he just got through telling me there was going to be nothing negative about it.
Yeah.
But I made up with Jim since, and I get along with Jim Gray today. You know, but he's one of those guys that Jim Controversial Gray is his name. He's got to be in the middle of a controversy.
Yep. Well, in 2004, you wrote a book, My Prison Without Bars.
Yeah.
And that was the first time you actually admitted to betting on games. What was it about that time that you felt you finally got to come clean about it?
No idea. 19 years ago. Listen, I can't remember what I did 2 days ago. I really can't. I can't remember why I did a book. I mean, I was trying to make money, surviving.
Mm-hmm. I mean, by that time, was your money situation bad, or were you still a multimillionaire?
Well, first of all, I've never been a multimillionaire. Okay, don't forget when I played. Don't forget when I played. I didn't play today. If I played today, I'd be a multimillionaire.
Okay.
Or if I played 5 years ago, I'd be a multimillionaire.
Right, but you were still a huge draw in terms of events and signing autographs and everything else.
Yeah,
like that. So I assumed.
But back 15, 20 years ago, you didn't make the money at a signing that you do today.
Okay, I get it.
You know, it costs more money to visit Santa Claus today than it did 10 years ago.
Right.
That's just the way it is. And I'm not complaining.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to work today. I work my ass off. But I enjoy it. Why do I enjoy people? I enjoy talking to people.
Well, on September 11, 2010, there was a roast on the 25th anniversary of your 4,192nd hit. And, you know, a lot of your team members were there from the Big Red Machine.
Where was it?
And
where was the roast?
Where was the roast?
Cincinnati?
It was in Indiana.
Don't remember it.
Right.
Don't remember it.
Well, at that point, according to reports, it said that you cried. And, you know, you basically cried to the rest of the team and said, "I'm sorry for disrespecting baseball." And you said, "I guarantee everyone in this room, I'll never disrespect you again. I love the fans. I love the game of baseball. And I love Cincinnati baseball."
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. It might have happened. I don't remember it. I've only cried a couple of times in my life.
Okay. Well, in 2016, you filed a defamation lawsuit against John M. Dowd, the lawyer that did the report on you.
And I don't remember that either. So
okay.
I'm not going to answer any questions about any lawsuit because I don't remember doing it. Sorry about that. I just don't remember.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, final question before I let you go. These days, cancel culture is a very popular thing, especially with social media. You were one of the first people in sports to get canceled. How do you feel about cancel culture and your role in it?
I got canceled?
In a way.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, based on the whole gambling situation, you end up losing, you know, your job with the Cincinnati Reds, and you got excluded from the Hall of Fame. Certain thing, you know, your job got canceled.
Yeah, you're talking about the 100 million I told you about.
And the 100 million also. You know, when you look at cancel culture these days, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not understanding the question.
Okay.
Cancel culture. I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay. Basically, what I'm saying is this. There's a lot of situations that happen in your career and in your life. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay. I've made lots of mistakes. You've made mistakes.
I thought I was the only one who made mistakes.
Right.
That's the way I've been treated.
Right. So in most cases, people make mistakes and, you know, people look at the big picture and say, okay, although this mistake was made, look at all the other things this person has accomplished. So we're going to give this person a pass. We're going to let this go, and we're going to allow this person to proceed with their life. But when the media is involved, when social media is involved, especially when fans are involved and so forth, a lot of times people get forever punishment, which is what happened in your case. And what happens in a lot of people's cases. You know, people don't want to forgive. People don't want to say, let's look at the big picture and let's forgive this person.
You're
they
right,
say, no, this person should be canceled forever.
There's still people today that say I don't belong in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Why? Where did I lack?
Yeah, I'm not one of them.
Because the Hall of Fame,
I think you absolutely belong in the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame is statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's got better statistics than me. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're definitely not wrong.
So, but what you going to do? I mean, you can't make everybody like you, because there's people who don't like the way I talk. They don't like the way I walk. But they all had to love the way I played. Because one thing I always played with, trying to give the people who paid their money's worth. I never cheated a fan in my life. And I played in 3,500 goddamn games. How many players can say that? I can say
None.
it. I can say it because it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not trying to persuade people right now to like me. Okay? I'm just trying to persuade people that I have not been given a second chance. Who do you know that has not been given a second chance? People will say, well, somebody.
Yeah, you're one of the few. You're definitely one of the few.
And I'm still out there. You understand what I'm saying? I'm still doing card shows 2 or 3 times a month. I'm still associating with the fans. I'm still picking up babies and getting my picture taken and doing events for handicapped people and stuff like that. I'm the one that's out there doing that. A lot of players today don't do that. Why? Because they don't need to. They all got millions in the bank. If I had millions in the bank, you think I'd be sitting here talking to you right now? I wouldn't. I'm going to be honest with you. And you're a good guy.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
That's just the way it is. You asshole. Just kidding.
It's all good, man. I've been called worse before. I've been called worse. Well, Pete Rose, regardless of a Hall of Fame or not, the stats speak for themselves. You're an absolute legend in this game. And you have records that I don't know will ever be beaten, just because the game is different, just because people don't play as hard. People get injured more often.
They don't play as long.
The rules are just not the same as they were
what
during
you're
that
saying
time.
in a roundabout way is, I have a lot of longevity records. And
Yes.
longevity is not the strong point for baseball today, for players. Because they can't afford to pay what they're paying these guys for 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You make it $20 million a year, how are you going to pay a guy for 20 years? That's $400 million. If they sign a 10-year contract for $500 million, that's 10 years. You're not going to get 4,000 hits in 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't
I agree.
forget one thing that I did, and it's my best record, and I have like 26, 28 Major League records. I won more games than anybody in the professional ranks ever.
Correct.
That's the best record I have. Winning games. 1,972. That's 250 more than the guy's second, who's a guy named Carl Yastrzemski, who was a pretty good player. Until somebody beats that record, I don't want to hear about him. I don't want to hear about him. Because I know nobody's going to get that many hits. And I would think no one's going to score that many runs,
career. Huh? I mean, a 24 season career, has that been done in any sport?
Playing 24? Ty Cobb
24. I mean, I guess maybe in golf. You could play golf for 24 years.
Ty Cobb played 24 years.
Okay.
But don't forget
how many of those are there though?
Not many. The old days they played more. But there again, when you play 24 years, you didn't play a lot your 24th year. You know, just take 3,550 and divide it by 24, and you see how many games I played a year.
Now, I actually looked it up. Nolan Ryan played 27 seasons.
He's a pitcher.
So, yeah, a little different.
And a good one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Struck me out 22. He struck me out 22 times. Nolan Ryan struck me out 22 times, and he walked me 28 times. And I hit 294 off of him, which is not bad off Nolan Ryan. I hit 307 off Bob Gibson.
Mm.
Okay. I hit almost 500 off of Warren Spahn. I got 64 hits off Phil Necro. And I got 30 some hits off his brother Joe. That's a 40th of all my hits off the Necro family. If she'd have had 5 boys, I'd have got 5,000 hits.
Well, Pete Rose, man, I appreciate you coming in and telling your story. It's a phenomenal story. It's a story that can't be retold. And, you know, regardless of any Hall of Fame, anything, your stats are phenomenal. And Charlie Hustle truly describes who you are, not only while you're playing, but now, you know, to this day, you're still hustling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you're 80 years old now?
81.
81 years old, and you're still hustling. So whoever gave you that name
Mickey.
didn't realize.
Mickey Mantle.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is when Mickey Mantle gave you that name, I don't think he realized how long this name is going to carry.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah.
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 This wasn't a nickname that just, you know, lasted a year or two.
Right.
This is a nickname that's lasted your whole life, and you truly earned that nickname.
Thank you.
So, Pete Rose, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for
Wish
your
all the
questions.
best.
You did your homework, and you didn't offend me at all.
Okay, maybe once or twice.
Okay.
That's what it is. Until next time, peace.